All right, you guys. We'll let some people take their time tuning in here. I know it's always an interesting one to be on time for the 12 o'clock viewing, and it's kind of been hard here with connecting with Australian time zones, and hopefully we can keep expanding on that. But wanted to bring it back here. We had the weekend off, which we enjoyed here at the house. Did some yard work, stayed really, really low key. Shelbs and I have been loving our time to take the dogs for a walk around the neighborhood, and then that's basically it. But I was reflecting a lot about what's kind of happened since starting this, which essentially was the idea of learning how to live stream movies for friends from my room, because I always kind of watch movies with friends, and these are VHS films and other DVDs that are really hard to see for a lot of people. So I wanted to kind of share that, and I just thought of the name Paradise Awareness Outreach because I wanted to reach out and let people kind of learn through these films the time capsules and cultures that were created in these moments, and we've already uncovered some serious gold. So I kind of wanted to reflect, if this is your first time coming on to watch the show. Last week we had a bunch of really cool guests. We had Troy Eckert and Ozzy Wright talking about the Volcom films at that time, which there were so many, but specifically Magnaplasm 156 Tricks. We had Jason Kenworthy with Snapping Turtle Productions talking about Raw Irons and Psycho Ward. That was super fun. Those movies were insane. That took us to Tim Curran Here and Now and Kalani Robb, which was just such a great reflection for that moment in time and what those guys were doing. And Timmy, of course, just pushing huge with the alley-oops and all the videos. That to me really hit home. And then it just kept going. I mean, honestly, we ended the week with Mick Fanning and Mason Ho, which was incredible because the Search movies for me growing up were at the top of the list for what I would be inspired by. But now Mick Fanning then was able to reflect on stories of the guys in the Search, as did Mason, and now where they're taking it this day and age. So I think there's a lot of learning that can be done. So I just am super, super grateful to be in the spot here, somehow in the driver's seat, being the conduit for other people to learn through these janky FaceTime calls that I'm making. And I'm sorry, but I got an even jankier tripod today, so hopefully it goes well. Which brings us to today, which for me hits home hugely. We're going to be talking to Nathan Fletcher. This is a video. This is These Colors Taste Like Music, which is a very hard video to find a hard copy of. And we want to thank Charlie Buckingham because he hit me up and said, hey, I actually have a copy of that. And so I went up and we did the mailbox drop-off, and I want to say a huge thank you to Charlie. I know he's tuning in, and it kind of reflects on the community of people that watch this show that are insanely core. Like, I've had a lot of people like sending me photos of their VHS collection, and also just knowing specific sections themselves, styles, surfboards, filmmakers, cinematographers. So I think today, like, I really was thinking it would be fun to say, hey, let's celebrate a cinematographer specifically each day. And there's no better one, in my opinion, than Sonny Miller, who we all know for doing the Search movies such as Searching for Tom Curran, the first one that we streamed. But this is a really interesting cut here that he worked with Nathan Fletcher, and I think that the two of those guys working together creatively created something that probably changed the course of surf edits to this day specifically. I know I reference this artistically a ton. So I think it's really great. I mean, other films Sony did was the Roxy movie Shimmer, which we learned about Lisa Anderson's top 5 and Leanne Curran's top 5. So I'm going to try to track a copy of that down so we can watch it. But of course, Sonny's not here with us anymore, so it's kind of just a big thank you to, we know he's in paradise. So we're just saying thank you for everything that you contributed to surf. And I guess without further ado, I just want to say that Nathan Fletcher, to me, has been the pinnacle of inspiration and surfing. So today, of course, like I was saying, it hits home really hard because I always grew up looking up to Nate for everything that he embodies, not just in the water. I mean, he's across so many different sports, which I hope to kind of talk about today. This movie is a great point to get into that because there's snowboarding, there's skating. Nate also huge in motorbike. So yeah, and then of course when I got to ride for Vans and then meeting Nate was just this huge moment. But I remember clicking in on a trip specifically to Peru with him and Joel Tudor and Dylan Graves, where I was literally out of body in the car just hearing the conversations between Joel and Nate, and And there's so much surf history, so much knowledge off of these two guys that I think is super important to pass forward. So when I hit up Nate, he was stoked because he's black belt knowledge on all of this. And I think by having him here today, it's going to open up the vault wide for all of us. So I hope you guys are tuned in, stoked out, ready to kind of see what's up. I'm going to call Nate right now off of Shelby's phone. And this is my tripod here, so you can see the duct tape rig. But I mean, gosh, like I realized when I was talking to Mick that we talked quite a while and my arm was super sore, so I was tripping on that. But here we go. Here's Nate. Okay, I'm gonna get in the right position. Where are we at?
Good, man.
What up, Nate Dogg? How you doing?
I'm good, and yourself?
Dude, I'm hanging in there.
Nice.
Hey, Nate, can I ask you to move your phone like horizontally? It just blows this. Yes, right here. Let's see what happens. Yes, perfect. We're in there. Oh, wait a second. Hey, have you been stretching a ton? It looks like you're ready to get a yoga sesh going on.
No, I'm just sitting here. I came just to where I could talk to you without people bothering me.
Rad. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I was stoked that we had that little call before this, too. I kind of didn't tell you, but I was watching 110-240 in the hole this morning, kind of just getting psyched up and all excited because, I mean, I hadn't seen those movies in forever.
Wait, which was it? Because I couldn't hear you cut out for a second.
You remember 110-240 and The Hole, those quick movies?
Yeah.
Like with Tom Carroll where he's just blasting rail carbs?
Vaguely, yes.
Vaguely, yeah. So I was tuning in, I was getting all excited, and I don't know, it just kind of, to me, this whole experience has been so insane to catch up on knowledge that I didn't know. And I've watched These Colors Taste Like Music like 1,000 times, but when I called you and you were even saying that you had things that you were just reflecting on, I was stoked for today. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. Me too. I was stoked too. And it's cool to see what you're doing.
Thanks, Nate.
And it was interesting to see what like the other guys had to say, like Mick and Mason and that stuff. It was weird on the phone, but it was definitely a wealth of knowledge, so it was cool.
I know, but it's kind of trippy because we're all sort of on lockdown, so the phone's like this weird, I don't know, weapon of communication. Yeah, I never FaceTimed that much before, so.
No, it's exciting because it's like using technology for the best case scenario.
Yeah, trying to help us out, get through it. Hey, Nate, the first question that I was wanting to ask you was, because this is with Sonny Miller, and we watched Searching for Tom Curran the first day. Is this how did you meet Sonny Miller, and was this the first time that you guys worked together?
I just lost you. Hold on.
Oh, standing by.
That must be me. Let me get closer to the source.
Get right on it.
Okay. That might be closer to the internet guy.
I was asking, is this the first time that you had worked with Sonny Miller?
Actually, well, no. See, me and Sonny, the first day I ever snowboarded when I was like 12 years old, we went up to, or maybe even 11, my dad took me up to Big Bear, and the deal was we went and met Sonny Miller because he was a surfer, and then he was friends with the guys at Nectar, so he had a snowboard, right? It was John Glom, and then Don Zabo, and I don't know, just these guys. So the first day I ever went snowboarding, we showed up and Sonny Miller was there and he had a snowboard for me. And so I went and tried to learn, but those guys were already like professionals or somewhat at that time because it was still like a wood snowboard and real early days. So anyways, then the first trips I went on was with my dad and Sonny Miller and that same kind of crew snowboarding in Tahoe. And that footage is in some of the first Wave Warriors, and it's, I don't know, I'm real young, but it shows those guys like Damian Sanders and that doing backflips and stuff. So my dad had hired Sonny to shoot that footage, and so the first trip snowboarding, so it wasn't that it was my first time working with him. He had been my friend for a long time prior to that, but it was the first job that I ever really did anyways, too. So, yes.
Is it the first time you'd ever worked with Quicksilver?
Him?
Yeah.
No, he worked with Quicksilver a bit before that. He did a bunch of Roxy stuff.
Okay, that's like that Shimmer movie. I've been hearing a lot about that. I never saw that. Maybe.
So he was in with the Roxy guys, and so then me and him were friends, and so we got the opportunity to do the movie.
That's pretty sick.
And that's how it ended up. But the cool thing about Sonny, why me and Sonny really gravitated, or there was many reasons, because he was just insane, but he was also a skater, and so like in his younger years before photography, he was the guy at Del Mar, at the Del Mar Skate Ranch. He was the team captain of the skate team, so he would have to take like Gator and Tony Hawk and all these guys to go to like say Upland to go do a contest or go to different places. And so he was really involved in skateboarding in the early years too, and then that's why he was involved in snowboarding in the early years too. And so when it came to surfing and such, he had already made Searching for Tom Curran and this and that, but he had a different understanding of surfing, and so me and him really hit it off well. And he would tell me all these stories about doing stuff with different people. And he definitely had, so that was the other thing. He was with the Life's a Beach guys, which was the Nectar guys, right? And so then you had to deal with some of the Life's a Beach guys. And so, yeah, he dealt with a lot of guys, and it was insane. And so he loved it. But it was the surf guys, the skate guys, the snowboard guys. He knew them all. And then his attitude, it just transcended to anybody who was around him. He was just magnetic, you know. He was a great person to be around, or you just shut you out like, oh.
Pass fail. But in this movie, there's a ton of snowboarding and skate. Was that more Sonny side of it, or was that? I mean, obviously, I think you have snowboard clips in this film, right?
Yes, that totally. But Sonny was definitely there. We went and did the Quick Cup and did certain things together, and then. I don't know exactly what the footage is in there. I just remember one section is a tribute to the people who I looked up to when I was young, and then there's another section who's a tribute to the people who are like my age and my peers.
Dude, that's actually one of my favorite sections, and it's insane. So, oh, wait a second. Is this Dr. Epic coming through? Hey, now.
Hi, Jet.
But with guys like Marvin Foster and JBG and all those guys, you were hanging around them, like as if Jetson's young, that's what those guys would have been, right?
Well, yeah, no, so that was the whole thing. The reason why I put that there was because when I was young, I was too young, but my dad was making waveware, so I was around a lot of things and a lot of surfing and a lot of surfers that were in their prime or pro or, you know, best in the world at that moment. And so for me, I was super young. I didn't even know what was going on. And then as I got older, and so when it got time to make a movie of my own, I wanted just to give those people respect and show them, you know, basically what they did to me or who they were to me. And then also giving my dad respect in the same sense of him making surf films of those people. And so it was kind of just out of, you know, my childhood. But the deal was Sonny was super stoked because he was already a cameraman in that era. So, like in the footage, when you see Johnny Boy go by on his backboard barrels in one section, you'll see Sonny in the barrel with him shooting, you know? So, but it'll be my dad's footage where it's a land angle, but Sonny's in the water shooting, you know? So,
yeah,
there's a lot of, you know, just similarities in where he was at in his career, but also what I was looking at. So for him, it was really fun to make.
Yeah.
And so he used some of his own footage, but mainly we used Wavewire's footage because it was kind of for my childhood. It was kind of depicting my childhood.
Did you say this is your first film that you this would be like your first profile film?
Well, I actually made a bunch of things, like with my dad and then at my dad's, and I made a motocross movie for FMF with this guy, Ray Somo. And
what was that called?
Factory Practice.
Okay.
And I don't know, my dad so I worked on stuff, and then when I was a kid, I would skate a bunch, and so we'd make sections skating, because that was like what happened right at that time when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Was skateboarding videos and sections, blah, blah, blah. Street skateboarding just came out. So I definitely wasn't unfamiliar with it, but when Quicksilver gave us gave us the opportunity. That was like a big deal where we had a budget and we went for a couple certain trips, and then we tried to make that movie. But it was an interesting time with videos because it was right when CDs came out, and so Quicksilver only put it out on VHS, which kind of wasn't enough at the moment. So that's why it really went unseen, I feel like. It wasn't meant for the masses, but in a sense, it got really unseen, and then they used it, I feel like, as, like kind of a blueprint or a trail map to design their own stuff to not have my name on it. So it wasn't branded as Nathan Fletcher, it was branded as Quicksilver. And so that was kind of a turning point in their whole thing with Nadas and their whole design, all that. So I'm not to say that I did any of it, but it was definitely in a moment where it didn't need to be anymore because they had it.
But so as you watch this movie, there's a ton of your own footage in it, right? There's a bunch of your Super 8, and I remember you telling me that you wanted it to feel real tweaky with the music. So like the clips are really fast paced, and like the music cuts right in the middle of songs, moves past. It's like that's the first time I watched it. It changed surf movies for me because they always had this flow and like, hey, here's a section and here's a story. Where yours was this ongoing collage of something fresh, new. I didn't know what was going to happen. Was that on your side of it or Sonny's?
Well, that was on both sides of it, and the thing was that was where I was at in my life. I just had stopped, or I just moved out of my car, and so there was just so much things happening, and so, and I was doing a bunch of art and making all these things, and so it was just a real creative time, and so Sonny tried to, like, emulate what was happening kind of, I guess, in my life, and keep it up to speed, and then use the music that was real, the stuff we made that was very different, or just tried to make it a little bit more interesting to somebody who has a different eye. And so not maybe so pleasing, but more abstract. And so it's funny because if you watch stuff on like red cameras that are really opposite, it's like very cinematic and dramatic. And this is much more, I don't want to say two-dimensional, but it's still film. There's a lot of 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter film in there. So you can tell the difference on certain shots. The underwater shots are 35 millimeter film, but it gives it a different sort of depth. It doesn't give it like a red quality depth. It gives it a film quality depth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
totally.
So when you cut a bunch of Super 8 together, it's pretty high speed because you do different film speed rates and all that, so, or whatever it is, different frame rates, and then different film speeds, and so you get a lot of jaggedness to the film already, and then light bleeds and such. So it kind of lends itself to be more want to be edited. Oh, he's doing his handstands.
Yes.
Oh,
wait, Justin's on a handstand right now?
He was just on the wall. Yeah, he's trying to show off over there.
Yeah. When you were saying like this was that time in your life, to chronologically put it together, you were on Gotcha before Quicksilver?
Yes, and so basically what this was a lot of my Gotcha life.
Okay.
Because most of it's like Alistair footage and stuff that we got, and then it's the first year or two on Quicksilver. I don't know how long I rode for Quicksilver, a couple years. But yeah, so that was that part of my life. But a lot of the good footage is like the last year of riding for Gotcha, or the last, kind of like in 2000 and that.
But you, so like, because I watched Heavy Water, absolutely loved it, but you had stepped away from surfing for a couple years, right? Before Gotcha? I mean, I wouldn't say stepped away from it, but like professionally.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't surf. And so I never really surfed professionally.
What?
Can you stop that big guy?
What are you doing? Are you kidding me? You're on the power plate?
So yeah. Anyways, what was the question?
Well,
again?
the question was because you had, and you talked about it a little bit with the freestyle motocross stuff, and
oh yeah, stepping away. Well, all the stepping away was, you know what? I was just young and I was around surfing a lot growing up, and I didn't know much else, and I'd skated, but those were all people I grew up with, and so all of a sudden, motorcycles I felt very foreign to. out of my element, didn't know anybody that did it, didn't know how to work on a bike or anything. And so it was really intriguing to me. And then when you put on a helmet and gear, you're just anonymous. And when you go out on the track, there's no rules. And so all of a sudden, you're just whoever. And so it's like, oh, the faster guy's faster and the slower guy's slower. It doesn't matter. So it was just exciting. And so then you're learning. So it's just like anything you learn, but it's very physical. And so it's like, oh, you're jumping and the adrenaline's just, and so if you're a real adrenaline person, it's exciting. And so, I'd done it growing up a little. Anyways, it was just like something new. And so when you get into something new, you really like it, and engulfs your whole life. And so there was just a time period where I transformed from surfing and skating and stuff and snowboarding. And I've been doing all that, but just motocross was real exciting and new and different and powerful. And so I did it for probably 4 or 5 years, a lot, and didn't surf too much at all. And then was surfing, going to San Diego, surfing the reefs down there and that, and living kind of in my van at the moment. Oh, no, not in my van yet. But then, boom, got the opportunity because I rode for Gotcha Europe, which was Kenny Jacobs. And the reason I rode for Gotcha Europe was because they were going to start doing motocross stuff in Europe. And so they sponsored me. But when Gotcha Europe, they had the first Gotcha Tahiti Pro because it was France. And so that's how I ended up going to the Tahiti contest, was because I rode for Gotcha Europe.
Holy shit, that's crazy. And in that event, kind of
and
basically...
And I just had no expectations. I just went there to go surf, even though I rode because it was going to be motocross in Europe, because that was a big market or whatever. It was just going to start like Supercross. I don't know, they were doing jump shows. So anyways... Then I went to Tahiti, and I said, if I make it through the second round of the main event, I'm going to try and become a surfer or do something. I'm going to start surfing again.
Yep.
And so then I made it through all the trials. It was 6 rounds of trials, and then I made it to the second round of the main event. Boom, second round of the main event, caught this crazy waves, got 2 10s in one heat, then made it to the quarterfinals and lost. Got 13th overall. And then Conan won. Kobe won, but should have been Conan.
That's the holy water. That video is holy water, right?
But so anyways, that changed my life. All of a sudden when I was done with that contest, because of how I did in that situation and how the waves got and what all happened, then I became a pro surfer. So when I got home, Gotcha America sponsored me and started paying me right there.
And then at that point, did you stop riding for Gotcha Europe with the motocross side of it?
No, it was just I went to Gotcha Europe, or Gotcha, just Gotcha, Gotcha America. So it was like, so it was basically I had a little foot in the door, but nobody really wanted to deal with it. But then when I got the 2 10s, when nobody had ever seen Chopo get big, and I had a 7.5, and it was just interesting.
Oh my God, yeah. And that time too with Gotcha and MCD, like the team there must have been insane. You plugged straight in.
It was pretty gnarly. I mean, I don't know, it was normal at that time, but yeah. That gnarly. But it was definitely like Brock, Potter, Andy, Rob.
Which already were your influences, right? Like you looked up to guys like Brock, Potts.
Well, that was Brock became the team manager too, so yeah, Brock kind of was hectic because he's the gnarliest dude ever, and he's the team manager. So, but it was a cool time. Everybody was thriving is what I really want to say. It was like when Andy and Bruce were just coming on, it was like when Braden it was kind of like toe ends hadn't really started to, you know what I mean? Like nobody, they were towing, but not a choke. It was just a trippy time. People were really pushing it. Nobody'd ever seen waves like that, and then it was like every set it was crazy.
But I feel like pushing it too, I mean, this probably comes later from that, because there's a lot of the footage that you're on kind of basically a thruster, it looks like Cole surfboards, but then after this movie was when you kind of pushed into the quads.
Oh yeah, much later. That was way later.
Really?
Well, I don't know, way later, because then every year was a big deal. Now it's like 5 years goes by and it seems like 20 minutes. You know what I mean? But back then it seemed like, 5 years. So probably 5 years later, probably from 2006, I want to say. And so that was 98, actually, that Gotcha, or 97 and 98, to Holy Water and Sacred Water.
And then
These Colors Taste Like Music was like 2000, probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
something. I don't know. I got a terrible memory, but I know it happened.
But then you wrote for Quick for a couple more years, still at that point, and then
not too long. There was a big funny.
Was it Analog?
Yes, I got sponsored by Analog, and then I wrote for them for about 8 years.
Dude.
And yeah, man, poor Jake Burton.
Yeah.
What a great guy. So yeah, him and Sonny. So that's another thing. Just another quick one, just because this is what this is about. So me and Sonny making this film, he became my dear friend, okay? And then he was Laird's personal photographer too. And so me and Sonny, we would do stuff, but then he would be telling me about like these trips taking Tom Curran, searching for Tom Curran.
Yep.
And so I don't really know Tom, but I would hear all these crazy stories of what Sonny had to do to make the film, like taking Tom's boards, meeting him here, boom, then all of a sudden he would turn around and like on a boat trip after he took the boards from California to meet Tom there, and then all of a sudden he turns around and Tom's like riding some soft top from a different guy's boat or whatever, you know what I mean, as he's trying to make, but all just super, so it was really cool. I got to get a bunch of great insight, but then he was also Laird's personal photographer who's a stand-up paddler, and I thought stand-up paddling was totally lame, we'll say, gay. Just not cool. It wasn't for me. I thought it was, and then I tried it, and I couldn't, but anyways, so Sonny, when I broke my leg, he's all, oh man, you got to try this. And so he took me stand-up paddle and really opened my eyes to like total different side of surfing and enjoying the ocean, riding the smallest little waves on the biggest board. And I would have never really done that. But my point to all this is Sonny had such a beautiful heart and was such a great guy and brought such cool things out of people. And like, he would just make the situation so good. And so in the end years, like recently, he would take care of his mom like the last 10 or 15 years. And so every time I'd see Sonny, he'd always have his mom with him, because she had dementia. And so this was probably the last 10 years after we made the movie. Then his mom moved in, his wife left him, and his mom moved in. And so he'd always have his mom. And then one day his mom, because she had dementia, she was 70 or something, I was on my way home from Mexico, and his mom had passed. And then it was insane because 2 days later, Sonny died of a heart attack. And it was like Sonny was such an awesome dude that he literally died of a broken heart from his mom passing away. Dude,
that's radical. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was only, I forget, he was like 54 or something ridiculous. But yeah, it was an interesting one.
That's radical.
And so that's one thing I really want to say is like I've never really met anybody our age, but I feel like he died of a broken heart. I know he had heart problems, but I feel like he was just here for good reasons and did good. And when his time was up, it was like once he was done taking care of his mom, he had nothing to really do here.
I think too, like it's got to be crazy for him to have that echo effect of like, even let's just say on the stand-up paddle issue where he's like made that look fun or hilarious where it drew you in, which might have potentially changed the course of your life with the big wave stuff, revolutionizing those boards and making them longer. Obviously, I remember when you were doing the SUP stuff and you're like, dude, I can surf my big boards better because of this, like that's, It's crazy though that it would be a guy like Sonny to say, hey, like, obviously you didn't think it was cool at the time. And he's like, fucking just try it, and then.
He's like, fucking just try it, Yeah, no, you know what Sonny was? He was a true motivator. And so that was another thing. He'd be like, because he'd be shooting real film, and you'd be like, I'm not going to go out and surf, like, this, and I'd be, I'll go out, I'll just pull the trigger when it's ready, or like, this or that. He would jump off the boat at Desert Point, up the crossing, strap his Pelican to a boogie board, not up the point, he'd go through the grower, where it's like, gets twice as big at the end, and then kick in, and go stand on the reef, but it was like, just nobody really did that stuff, because his kit was just so big, so he would show up to the airport with 10 duffel bags, but all like those JanSport shitty duffel bags. And what he would do, and he would show up with it'd be like 4 JanSports and then 6 little ice chests, floppy ice chests. And you would look at him and he had all his Pelicans inside JanSports, right? And so he'd disguise all his gear, but he'd have so much gear, it would just look ridiculous. So he didn't want to look like he'd always have all his cameras. And so it'd always be ice chests, like, the soft ice chest, so that's how he'd put the little ones, and then he would just throw big JanSports around his big Pelicans and kind of just make it look like shitty gear,
That's amazing. Are you kidding me?
And then And then he turned me on to Wally Park because he was always so late with so much gear and driving himself, and he'd just be on a rampage. And so every time it was in and out on the way to the airport and in and out on the way home, because that's off the freeway. But then he had this deal at Wally Park, if you ever park there at the airport, where you can pull in and you just jump out of your car and you catch the bus right there. And then when you send your car up, they can wash it or tune it up or whatever, but it's valet parking at the airport for the same price as your normal thing. And so what he would do would just be a total mess, rip all his gear out, put it on the ground everywhere, and just be telling the guy, oh, wait, here, 5 minutes, we're ready, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But he'd be packing while he'd be yelling at the people trying to button up his shirt or whatever. It was just insane. But then I learned about Wally Park and how to do that and how to just really be on the fly with a bunch of shit. How to do it.
Dude, you know what so before we called, I was saying like kind of how like on the Vans team and then we met, and I'll never forget that you on that Peru trip that we did with me, Dylan, and Joel, you rocked up to the airport with, your boards to check in, but you had nothing. You had your passport in your pocket or around your neck or something, and you're like, well, fuck, like I got everything I need right here. And I was so blown away, like, oh, cool, just streamlined, I guess. You don't need much.
That's one way to do it. Yeah, that way I don't lose anything.
Yeah.
Just make sure I have my essentials.
Gotta have it.
Yeah, those. You know what? It's actually great to even talk about Sonny and think about that because he's one of those people that brings the best out in people. And you could ask Laird or Tom or any one of the people, even I'm sure the skaters or Sherman, because Steve Sherman was one of the younger photographers, skaters, Del Mar Skate Ranch, all that. And, you know, what Sherman has to say about Sonny when he was a kid and who he looked up to, and just classic stuff, you know, it's really cool.
Sherman, actually, he has a shot. I was trying to...
Johnny Boy, you ask Johnny Boy about Sonny. He has story after story.
Dude, let's get Johnny Boy on the phone. That would be an
Miller
amazing... time! Yes! Oh, man. Hey... Well, thanks, Nate. I guess, do you have any last notes on before I play These Colors Taste Like Music?
Well, the last part of the movie, we made this song, me and my friend Craig, and it's just, what it is kind of a weird little bass line with a digital drum beat. But the interview, the person talking is Jay Adams, and it's me just interviewing on a micro, like a little micro cassette. And he's talking about the shit he likes and turns and this and that. And it's over the section wall, hole shaping a surfboard. So that's a song that we made. And then there's some Indians chanting and people talk, you know, like the abortion pill, RU486. Wow. Interesting. But it's just, that was the little thing, I don't know, that you could check out in the movie. That's kind of something that we did. The intro part's another song that we made that was on the computer.
Who's doing the voiceover in the intro part?
That's Omar Hassan.
Oh, what? That's so cool. I love that. That's like such a trippy quote. He could do a barrel or 5. Like, who knows? I love that.
Well, because the reason why was nobody did that. And so Omar Hassan, he would go to the Quick Cup with us, and he would see me do the backside full rotations. And in 2000, at the Barrett's Air thing, whatever, basically I did a backside full rotation. And I'm going to say this, too. So when we made the movie, me and Sonny made the whole movie, and then I went on a trip. And this guy, Taylor Wisnan, came in and recut all these things when I was gone. And what he did was cut off like paddling into the wave or exiting the wave. And so it shows me do a backside 540 in Barrett's, and I stick it perfect in the year 2000. And I
with the white jersey.
With a white jersey, but when it I land and ride perfect, but they don't show it. And so there's certain things like that, or I can't know exactly what, but when I saw the first premiere of the movie, at wherever it was in Costa Mesa, it actually made me cry, because being a surfer and certain things that you want people to see because of things, because it's like, oh, paddling into it, exiting it, like whatever certain things were, it's for a meaning. And so when a team manager person gets involved and they got to have it 28 minutes by 28 minutes, then they cut out like some of the best things. And there are certain things. And so when I saw that was one bummer that I was really, because I really wanted to display certain things like making completing a trick in that.
That's so trippy. So there's also another clip, a big frontside air that you do pull in the white jersey. Is that the same?
Same scenario. I stuck it, rode away, put my arms up. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of things. And so they snip clipped like all this stuff. There's footage of my dad that they snipped, bunch of little things. But it was like, I can't name them off the top of my head right now, but I definitely know that backside full rotation. And so that's why Omar's in there, because he's a pro skater, right?
Yep.
And he could do a 540. So it's not like he was just saying it because he saw it and he didn't call it, you know what I mean? Because there was a backside full rotation. And nobody had ever done that at that point all the way around. Oh, no, people had, but it wasn't like, it was like maybe to backwards or like almost a full rotation, land on the lip, and then complete the spin like Rat Boy did. And so in my head, it was like, I wanted to go straight to straight.
At that point, had Rat Boy done that air that he did at the lane?
Yeah, for sure. He had done that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But it wasn't straight to straight. And so in my head, being a skateboarder and a snowboarder, you wanted to like see something go boom and just land and not have to do anything. You want to see it go boom, full rotation, boom, stop it, go, keep into a bottom turn.
With the airs?
So nobody's ever done that.
With the airs, because you snowboard, skate, and surf, do you take the inspiration from snowboarding, skating, or is it just like a straight up mix?
No, it all comes from skating, because everybody's respect starts at skating, because like skateboarding, if you even drag a toe, that's not a make.
Okay.
Like if you walk, you know what I mean? Skating is like you got to pop it, catch it, and stick it, poop, or it's considered a fail, or it's a fumble. You know, so like surfing, all of them are fumbles until like just in the last, you know what I mean? Not
totally, I get that.
So in snowboarding, it doesn't count because you're strapped to your snowboard, and so all the grabs and all that shit don't even mean you're just doing that to look cool. Technically, you don't need to do it. You know what I mean? So it's like, snowboarding, you're just emulating what you do surfing or skating.
But I did hear, like, for snowboarding, the longer you hold the grab, like the cleaner or bigger, then that's more rad. And I feel like in surf, that's sort of trending now. Like, did you actually hold that or not?
No, 100%. That's the... And so even like doing things late, like a late 180, or the distance if you hold it, or having your arms by your side, or, you know, there's definitely different technicalities to it, or going upside down. And so that's the difference between having one hand and two hands in surfing, or, you know what I mean? Or if you land and slide around, or if you land going straight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, so there's a half-ass way to do it and make it, and that's how you evolve to get to the right way to do it. So like doing a shove it, or, you know, it started like doing a chop hop and going backwards, and then just boom, my brother doing a shove it. But then now you see people come to a lip and actually do a varial, catch their board and land it backwards. You know, where it had to start by going and doing, you know what I mean? Just doing a little hop to fakey shove it, for people to understand that your board can do all that, to now hitting a section and doing a varial and grabbing it and land. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Or a 360 varial, you know? So it's just all evolution, but surfing is kind of kooky because you got a big, light surfboard, and so skateboarding, you could do all these things, but you have a small, little, dense board, and your wheels are spinning, so maybe that even does something too. But you just have much more control of it, and so it's cool to do it surfing, but you want to try and do it to the best of your ability. And I feel like people like Dane Reynolds and different people bring that coolness to surfing or whatever, you know, like they were, like for me, I don't really picture myself because I have a real kooky style, and I just more am having fun and just trying to go for it. But I like the fact that people like Dane have a certain way about themselves and only will do it the right way, and they only will take it the right way. You know what I mean? So totally. And I feel like that's the standard that a real professional surfer should have in this day and age with airs. And
do you feel like yeah, I know exactly actually what you're talking about, but for you with your style, it's where does your style kind of like, what's the genesis of it? Like, was it from skaters that you looked up to, or just yourself just going around with all different sports, or was there actually like surfers that you were at the time of kind of whatever supernatural time or whatever, where you're so impressionable? Was there guys that you were directly looking up to in surf?
Yeah, no, 100%. So I'm just going to say, when I, like, for instance, Tom Carroll, and I love it because I can still look up to Tom Carroll, and he's still such a cool person.
Yeah.
So he's a surf hero to me. And so, yeah, I had always thought he'd turn. And so Marvin Foster, and if you watch footage of Marvin Foster, and if you watch how smooth his roll of his ankles are, like nobody surfed like him. He had a different a different control of his board, you know. And then it's interesting, too, because if you watch Button surf and you compare Buttons and you look at his style and then you look at, like, Kelly Slater on most of his stuff, they have a very similar body techniques. And so it's just different equipment.
Interesting.
And so, I don't know. So anyways, yeah, I'd look at Buttons too. And then it's cool because when you really dig deep and you look at, say, Buttons, he was surfing and skateboarding. And that's what he loved to do. And so then you look at Jay Adams, and he was a surfer and skater. And then he got more recognition from skateboarding, from what he was doing, where he was living, but he was really a surfer. And that's what drove his skateboarding. And then somebody like Shane Horan, he was Australia's national champion because his dad was like an Olympic ice skater, did ice skating, coaching and all that. So Shane Horan was one of the first people to be able to have a skateboard because they would take the roller skates and make skateboards. And so Shane Horan's a skateboarder. And so if you look at what he's done in surfing and where his mind went to, he was very innovative and influential, I guess.
Bro, I mean, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's trippy how skateboarding kind of just makes you see different things and in more of a open-minded way, I want to say. And it goes for my dad, too. He was very involved in skateboarding at a real young age, making skateboards out of skates and wood. And once you start doing that, I feel like it just branches you out to, like, want to do things.
Is it true that your dad was skating pools before a lot of those guys, Dogtown guys?
Well, he was definitely skating the first pool ever skated, and it's called The Pool, and in some valley, Fountain Valley or whatever right there in Bellflower or something like that. But you definitely can't find pictures in anybody in a pool before that. You can find maybe a picture of a person in the same pool, but they're much lower, and so he's all the way up by the light, barefoot. So,
dude, the thrill is bad.
What he was saying was they weren't even doing kick turns, and so he'll tell you that he basically was the first guy to come up and do a turn up by the light, which is the kick turn.
That would be my dream to have a call with your pops too, because I want to know, like, how did he start? Like, that's psycho.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and so how he started, what he tells me, you got to call him, but in my is, you know, seeing the older guys, my grandpa's generation, whatever that was, Greg Knoll, you know, and then even Phil Edwards, Mickey Munoz, you know, my uncle, my grandpa, Walter and Phil Hoffman, but Buzzy Trent.
Yeah.
Those people he saw, and the only way they could make it was if they had a surfboard company. And so the way you supported yourself was you made surfboards and you sold surfboards and you shaped boards and then you surfed.
Yeah, you did it because you wanted to surf.
You did it because you wanted to surf. And then if you wanted surf trunks, you made surf trunks. If you wanted this, you made it. And so there just wasn't anything. And so if you wanted it, you made it. And so once that mindset kicks in, I feel like, and that's how you start. You know, if you evolve the longboard into a shortboard, if you know, you make clay wheel, or, you know, you ride clay wheels from steel wheels, if you do all that, your mind's already on that sort of a trend. And so you're always looking at things, trying to make it better. You know, you're watching from no grip to grip tape, from no astrodeck to astrodeck, from no surf movies to surf movies, from surf movies being sold only at a VHS store to go into a surf shop. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things. Yeah. So my dad, he was the first guy to put his movies in surf shops instead of at the VHS store. So, because he'd go around selling astrodeck, right?
Oh, cool. So he would just already be there. So he'd be like, hey.
So he'd already be there. So he started putting Wave Warriors at the surf shops instead of having to go to whatever the VHS store was, Blockbuster, or, you know, because at that time it was. Yeah. No, it was interesting. And so whatever, it just all happened, and it was all cutting edge, and it's all past tense, but it's all still happening in different forms. And now we're all isolated, which is a trip because we're on the phone talking.
Yeah, it is weird. It's weird because you get into your thought program through the day, and you're just like, this is a good example. Like, we have this conversation, and then I just am kind of with Shelby for the rest of the day, and we just like lock it down. It's weird. You do have a lot of time to think, and also to push different ideas. Like, I would never do this if I wasn't at my house, which I'm so thankful that I am doing this, because that was a really rad conversation. I learned a shitload off of a video that I'd already watched 1,000 times. I didn't know Omar Hassan was the intro voice and the reason why, and I thought you might not have pulled that backside 540, and it's incredible.
Well, thank you, Tanner. You enjoy your day. I love doing it, and you're a huge inspiration to me, and your whole family is actually all the Goodangs.
Dude, you're the man, mate.
The Goodang Labs. But, man, I'm stoked. Enjoy your day. Jetson came in for his little appearance.
That was rad.
And there's Grandpa right there.
What? Dude, there's the inspiration right there, boys.
Right there. Yeah.
That's so
on the
cool.
gas. That's on the gas right there.
That's fully throttle.
Later, guys. Thank you, Tan.
Thanks so much, Nate. Appreciate it.